is Heather.
And I'm Molly, and welcome to Gems Uncut.
Let's cut it up.
Let's cut it up.
What is financial planning and why is it essential?
Wow, I think that's a really good question. And I think for me, not knowing what this career really meant when I accepted the job, but I look back at my parents and, they were able to provide quite a bit for us. We were by no means the wealthiest family in town, but I look back at how did they know what to do? How did they make the decisions that they made throughout life? And I know for a fact they consulted other friends and family along the way, and I'm sure outside resources as well. I mean, I wasn't there with them in their journey when I'm two, but I know that they consulted people along the way, and I know for a fact, that's how I'm here today, is that they invested in themselves and their future and their goals to make sure that they could help pay for college and do other things that they wanted to do.
Pay for college for 3 of you.
Yes, for 3 of us.
Triplets.
At one time.
That's wild.
3 different schools. But I really reflect back on that and go, oh my gosh, that is planning. Hey, I want to help pay for my kids' college.
That is planning, and that's goal-based planning. They had a goal to set out to do that, and if they didn't have that in mind when you were younger, unless a miracle happens, that's not going to happen overnight. You got to start somewhere, start small, and stay consistent.
Gosh, yes. I can give you another example of, hey, a goal. I want my kids to have a car when they turn 16. My dad bought a used Toyota Camry when we were like 2 or 3. And drove that thing until we were 16 and said, here's your car. And we all 3 shared it.
How'd that go?
Oh, man, we had to have a designated spot and we rotated weekly.
Okay.
So if you were in the driver's seat, the next week you were in the back seat. And then the next week we were in the passenger seat.
Wow. Talk about sharing.
Sharing, yes.
I needed to learn that personally earlier on, but that's amazing. I would have probably wanted to drive most of the time.
I didn't trust my brothers nearly as much as I trusted myself.
Funny how that works out. That's awesome. Whenever we do think about the goal-based planning versus just saving, we do find if we've got kind of that big goal at the end that we can see, that we talk about, and that accountability partner, we're probably going to get there sooner.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And it's funny, as when we work with clients, sometimes we're like, you're just not thinking big enough. I know you said you want a house, but you probably want a mansion, right?
Maybe.
Or you should plan for that mansion if you want it,
yeah.
Of course. Where I feel like in anything in life, we always undercut ourselves. We don't push ourselves big enough. I think I can relate to that in so many different ways.
Absolutely. When it comes to people every single day making the decision to take the next step in their financial planning process, who is ready? How do you know if you're ready to take that step, or who needs to be consulting with a financial planner?
I think everyone needs to be consulting with a financial planner, but I think there's a difference between everyone and then being ready to consult. I think you have to want to move the dial, move the needle. It's kind of like, okay, well, I want to lose weight or get in shape, but I'm not willing to get up early and go to the gym. Okay, well, same thing with financial planning. I want to have the house, the retirement fund, or whatever it may be, but if I'm not willing to put the action to do that, then, okay, I guess you're not ready. But everyone needs to work with an advisor, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to be rich to get the education behind it. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, is setting that strong foundation. And what does that actually mean, setting a strong foundation? We start with an emergency fund, which is typically 3 to 6 months of living expenses, depending on your household income. And if we have 2 people bringing in income versus 1, and the reliability of that career in general. What happens if you don't have an emergency fund?
That can make life definitely a little bit more challenging because emergencies happen. I mean, it could be I lose my job. It could be oh my gosh, tires blew out on my car, and so I had to replace the tires. And then, because when it rains, it pours. And then I have to go do this other thing or whatever it may be. I think about first time I bought a house and how I just wanted to paint my house. And then it was but we noticed this thing that had to do with the roof, so you had to get this repaired, then this repaired, then this repaired, and then that cost you way more than you think. So it's we have to be prepared for those what ifs, and they can look so differently. There's many, many examples out there. So having the 3 to 6 months of living expenses is super essential for okay, I can breathe at night knowing I need to replace the 4 tires in my car, which is very expensive, and et cetera. So,
and not to mention all of the baby shower and wedding invites you're getting, that just sprinkle those in there and voila. How did our budget run up so much last month just by having friends?
yeah, I know. And wanting to be supportive for everyone. It's like it can definitely, where we have the best of intentions to stick to a budget or whatnot, but life happens and throws us curveballs, whether it's fun things or not fun things.
Yeah.
Having that emergency fund really helps, and it gives you some peace of mind at night. So
It does. It does, absolutely. Another big piece of setting that foundation is the protection that we have with the foundation.
yeah, the protection piece isn't nearly that fun to talk about, unfortunately, but it's the what ifs in life that they happen, and I think when we think about what is that, it's the risk management planning. It's the, health insurance. By law, we have to have health insurance. So when we get sick and when we go to a doctor, whatever that looks like, we're not just paying 100% out of pocket. Property and casualty insurance. So you've got to have renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance, but you also have to have car insurance. We don't want to think about getting a wreck in our car, but if we do, we've got the insurance to help. But then that leads to the most important things that you do not have to have by law, the life and disability insurance. I know you have a personal story with that.
I do, yes. It's probably the most uncomfortable piece outside of death to talk about, because when it comes to life insurance, there are ways to not necessarily throw away your money. We all think that we are strong and we're going to be working the rest of our lives, and that is definitely not the case. Disability does happen. A study shows that 1 in 4 people become disabled at some point in their life. And long-term disability can really take out families and the wealth that they have built over time. My personal story being my mom. She's been 100% disabled with my dad as primary caretaker for her for over 8 years now. And the impact that has had on my family. Luckily, my dad was the breadwinner. So financially, by the grace of God, we are standing on 2 feet. But emotionally, where to even begin? It's a completely different person, brain cancer, in remission now, but she can't work, she can't drive, she can't do anything. And just relying on Social Security income, a mere fraction. To get into numbers, 13,000 annually from the government. If she didn't have somebody else there to support her, what on earth would she be doing? Where would the government put her?
That would be a burden on you if she wasn't with your dad
Hey,
at the end of the day.
yes, and luckily, she's got the family to support her. But what if you don't? There are plenty of people that whenever they talk to their either significant others, or if they don't have that pillar of support, what would you do? You have to have these conversations because they do happen. And we work with families that it happens to on a weekly basis.
Yeah, you bring that up. I know after I had my daughter, we were talking about all of these things, and specifically with life insurance, well, what happened if you passed away? And I was like, as much as I love my parents and I would totally live with them if I had to, push comes to shove, I don't think I want to. Sorry, mom and dad. I don't want to.
Well, what if they're not here anymore?
Yeah, and quite frankly, they're getting older too. Or then, I guess I move in with in-laws or a sibling, and, that might just get a little cramped quarters over there. So, but me and my husband had that conversation, we don't want to have to do anything. We want that decision to be in our court if something were to happen. And, that's where it really pushed, to have those unfortunate and uncomfortable conversations, to put things in place. So I think for any of those risk management factors, it's so important to think about what if this happened, have that conversation with that person that you need to. If you're single, that has to be with your family. If you're, married or in a very serious relationship, that's a conversation with the other person.
Yeah.
and kind of what would happen if we don't have these things in place, and are we comfortable with that? Because
Yeah.
you might be okay with living a certain lifestyle, but I know a lot of things that are provided, if they are provided, aren't enough. So it's always good to say, hey, let's have this conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So, not fun, but it's absolutely pivotal whenever building that foundation to your financial household. Because what is someone's most valuable asset? Their working ability. And if we cannot work to provide an income for our family that is expecting it, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really have the conversations on what does retirement look like to you if you can't work for 30 years, you know? So it's truly an essential building block. Um,
Absolutely.
to give you the peace of mind that I don't have to have my goals derailed if these things were to happen.
Yes, for me and my family.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of leads into life insurance. Big proponent of life insurance is, especially when you have kids, replacing that income. If you were to pass away prematurely, and your family relies on your income, or you have debt, whether it's a home, a business, quite frankly, anything that's going to hinder a monthly payment that was being relied on from your monthly income. How do we replace your life and your earning potential over years and years, especially when you have multiple mouths to feed? These are absolutely crucial pieces to building the foundation of a financial home. And we really can't get to the fun stuff until we lay brick by brick that strong foundation.
Absolutely. And that brings up kind of like another part of your foundation is a budget. I think budgeting is also foundational because it allows you to be able to like I mean buy life insurance, buy disability, buy car insurance, all of those things, but it's completely separate, a separate category.
We preach pretty highly on the 50-30-20 rule. Let's dive into that. What does 50-30-20 rule mean?
Yeah, 50% of your net income going towards your needs. Easy numbers, if you made 10,000 a month, and it gets deposited in your bank account, about 5,000 should go to your needs. My mortgage or rent, food, car, gas, all the essentials that like if you lost your job, you cannot go without. 30% should go to your wants. So in that example, 3,000 a month. I want to go to the movies. I want to go shopping. I don't need to go shopping. I need to go to the grocery store to get my basics. I want to go to a steakhouse. So there is a difference with some of those things. And then 20% of that income, so it'd be 2,000 in that example, should go to saving for the future, which obviously is your goals at that point. I know you and I being in this career, we might like to flip-flop the 30 and the 20. So it just depends how big your goals are. How much
Right.
should we be putting towards that? But it's super important to go through that budgeting exercise. It's kind of I think we said earlier, if you want to lose weight or whatever, it's kind of like it's scary to go and look at what you eat every day. If you calculate the calories, sometimes you're like, holy cow, how much was in that one thing?
Yep.
It can be daunting to go through that budget, but you have to. If you don't know where it's going, you don't have anything to put towards those goals.
Yeah, this can be hard for setting a new discipline, especially depending on how you were raised or what your standard of living currently is. I know talking to some people about just getting started and them not having very much of their net monthly income to save. And when we start breaking down what they're spending every month, we start to see all the things that maybe they were used to mom and dad paying for, and they need that same standard of living as they get on their own, but they're not making the type of money that can support that standard of living. So having to backtrack can be difficult, and that's actually something that mom and dad can teach their young one, is budgeting from an early age and setting the standard of, hey, if you don't have enough money for this month, you're going to have to save and save it for the next month, because you can't just always get the top brand of this at the grocery store. Sometimes we got to get the great value and work our way up, because we need those extra few dollars to be put in that savings bucket and not towards the high value brand just because we want it. Otherwise, we won't be reaching our goals. We'll just be living in the now.
Absolutely. I know something that kind of essential for me growing up to learn some of that was when I would get birthday money or Christmas money. Like my parents were like, hey, if you save a portion of this, like we'll match it. That was just something they did to teach us how to save. But I knew that like if I wanted that bigger item, whatever it may be, and I didn't have the money, okay, that's gonna be how I have that happens. Is I gotta save money, whether it was from that or an allowance or whatnot. But then also having a budget in college. Like I did have a budget in college, so I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, things are different. I can't just
Yes.
take mom and dad's credit card and like I did in high school. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. So, budgeting, we got to break down that 50/30/20 rule. We have to see truly if we sat down with you and you are bringing 10,000, and again, this works on a scale all the way down. Like, how much are you bringing home? And if we showed that 20%, that 2,000 a month out of that 10,000 you're bringing home, if you could give that to us every single month to do something with, how would you feel? What would you say? I know a lot of people, probably more often than not, they'd be like, I don't have $2,000 a month that I could give you. Now, frankly, that is when we're like, okay, we're going to have to work on some discipline here. And there are plenty of people too that's like, oh, we could do more than that, depending on what they were taught and what their current disciplines are. But this is a great starting point to work towards. I could probably only do $1,000 right now out of that budget. What could I work on with my fixed expenses or what I'm just spending on fun to get it to that 20%?
right, we do have to like go through that line by line. So,
Amazing. With budgeting, though, comes debt management. Because if we can't budget, some things like credit cards, they just creep on in there. It looks good, it feels good. Swiping that card can feel good. But when everything's said and done, how does it really feel?
it is not fun to feel that high interest debt creeping up. So, and that's usually a consequence of our wants being way out of budget. And sometimes it's life, but that's where we kind of go back to that. And if we have overindulged in the wants that, okay, well, we might have to take from the wants now and pay off that credit card. But there is called good debt and bad debt. So I think the bad debt is the easy thing that we've been alluding to. It's the high interest debt. Anything over 7% is not considered good debt. It is bad debt. So like credit cards, usually your interest rates on your credit cards are extremely high. But good debt is anything below 7%. So think about those mortgages back in 2020, during that COVID time. Like, dang, you can't find anything that low anymore.
Right, right. Yes. Car, student loans, most mortgages are going to be in that good debt range where, hey, let's not think about our number one goal as being pay off debt as fast as possible, but more so, what can we do with those extra dollars? Can we invest them to try to make more than 7%? What if we even made 8% on average with those additional funds instead of going toward a 7% interest rate on debt? Well, we're still netting 1%. We're still ahead by putting our money to work. So I know we have a lot of conversations where once we kind of figure out what we're working with and we're starting to talk about goals, getting debt under 7%, paying it off, are a lot of people's number one goal. So we have to kind of break down that mindset and understand the emotion behind why is that your number one goal? Why do you equate debt to being bad? Because it's not all bad.
Yeah, it isn't. I don't know where that thought came from. Like, I feel like I didn't even know what debt was growing up, but somehow, like, that is people's number one goal.
I remember my dad saying he, on a house a long time ago, had like 11, 12% interest rate, which obviously we weren't around for that, but that doesn't sound as appealing.
Now that's something we'd consider bad debt when it is 12%,
Yeah.
like if we're following the rule of sevens.
Right.
So times have changed, and I know when rates went down, they all refinanced that.
Yes. How do we make our money work harder for us, leading us into investing?
Yeah, investing. I mean, we really help people in so many different ways. And I really think it comes down to the word diversification. Diversification on the time horizon. So having different buckets for different time horizons. Also for tax treatments. Different investments get taxed differently. But then also, like, not only do these all things happen, there's kind of like a Venn diagram of everything, but also how diversified are we in each investment for the short term, the long term, the tax treatment, etc.
Right. And rebalancing, all of those. It's important to understand how to contribute at a substantial level, but not stress yourself out over it. Taking all of that into consideration, this is why it's important to talk to a professional, get an idea of where you're currently at, talk through where you're trying to go, and let them help you. I know in our first episode of just getting to know us, you alluded to we're financial therapists. The easiest part of our job is the financial planning. We have been in the career 8 and 11 years, and the financial planning piece we could do in our sleep. We say that all the time. The investing, it's not that hard. It is managing your emotions through the volatility of the stock market, remaining the course, understanding what the goal is, and leaning on us or your financial professional through those hard times, through the times where you feel like you just got to get out of there. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely. I think we have to work together. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a team, like with our clients, with, anyone listening and their financial professional. They're a team. They're trying to get there together. We win if you win. So we work in the best interest of those clients. So just like, what are some key takeaways that, like, if you were to listen to this, like, what are maybe action items that we can implement?
Let's look at the budget. If we don't have a budget, if we're just aimlessly spending, we're not setting money aside every month for our goals. What are our goals? Let's define those. How do we define those? Well, smart,
Measurable, achievable, realistic time frame.
yes.
Yes. I think that budgeting, having those smart goals, and I think you have permission for those goals to develop over time.
Right.
I think it's hard to envision what retirement looks like when you just graduated college, for example, but also making sure your foundation's set, like specifically with that risk management. Because if those what ifs happen and we aren't prepared for them, that might mean we have to deplete and change those goals. And I'll tell you one thing, I don't want to change those goals in a negative way. I only want it to be because I added another, couple thousand square foot to that mountain house that I want,
Yes, absolutely. Start small, stay consistent. I think a big myth is I need a lump sum of money to be able to start investing. No, you don't. The first thing you should be doing when you get a job or if you are starting your own business is what can I set aside per month for retirement? That fourth bucket.
Yeah.
That, hey, we need over 30 years of accumulation in this bucket for it to be something that can set us up for that financial independence. So starting right away, even if it's small and staying consistent, you're going to win the game that way.
Yeah, I think that's something like in more episodes we can talk about, like the power of basically compounding interest is what you're alluding to there is
Right.
like if you start small and you just are disciplined to do it, I think the maths pretty well to how quickly you can become a millionaire. And I know there was a show growing up called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And it's like, okay, on that show it might take you 30 minutes to become a millionaire if you make it that far, but like you think about how that's impossible, like on your own. It's not when you work with a professional.
Absolutely. I really think that wraps up today. And setting a strong foundation really starts with talking to someone who's going to get you there, somebody that's going to give you the tools and resources to get you on track, because the first step is always the hardest.
You're right.
We got to start somewhere because every gem
Starts uncut.
See you next time.